You want to? Okay.
So Dalet Ches, Megillah.
Okay. Oh. Yes. If one says, I will not go before the ark in colored clothing, he may not even go in white clothing. If he says, I will not go before the ark in sandals, he may not even go barefoot. One who makes his tefillin around endangers himself and does not fulfill the precept. If he places the tefillin on his forehead or in his palm, it is the matter of heresy. If he covered them with gold or if he placed them on his sleeve, this is considered the way of the outsiders. If one says, good men shall bless.
So this Mishna is talking about heretical practices. And carries on in that respect. And we had a little segue in the Mishna that we didn't do on Friday. But yeah, we were talking about all the different. We started out by talking about the coin who's got mummy on his hands, and then he said he shouldn't duchen because now people are staring at him. But now talking about who goes in front of, if somebody goes in front of the tzibur to daven, and he's got different ideas about what should be done, and it's not minhag Yisrael. So if somebody is machmir on something that Israel is not machmir on, then we immediately suspect, whoa, what weird days has this guy got? Which is an interesting thing that it's well and good to have chumras, but they've got to be chumras within the within the framework of minhag Yisrael. So if you want to say, okay, so I'm going to be extra careful, about this thing which is a suffix, or this thing which I want to do something that will prevent me from being over on the mitzvah. But when you start introducing new ideas, and somebody says, I'm not going to, I don't want to daven in front of the Amud because I'm wearing colored clothes. You think, wait a second. Who said anything about colored clothes being an issue? And what's like, are you being machmir on something? Like, if he's got some mystical idea that colored clothing, you think this isn't minhag Yisrael, and this guy is not allowed to daven even if he's wearing white clothes. So we have a healthy skepticism for people who have weird practices. Okay, carry on.
If one says, good men shall bless you, this is heresy. If one says, your mercy extends even to a bird's nest, or for goodness sake is your name remembered, or we give thanks, or we give thanks, he's silenced.
Right, so if you say modim, if you said it twice.
Right.
That sounds like shtei reshuos.
If one gives symbolic interpretations to the prohibitions against forbidden unions, we silence him. If one says the verse, and of your children you shall not give over to Molech, means that you shall not give of your seed to impregnate a Gentile woman, we silence him with a condemnation.
Right. So this is where a person is megaleh panim shel Torah. So he's saying this is what the Torah is saying, and it's not what the Torah is saying. If he just because. If people, first of all, if he's like a little too prurient to mention what the arayos are, and then he's going to teach people wrong, and they're not going to learn the right thing. You have to explain what arayos are arayos, and you've got to know what's asur and what's not, even if it's awkward, even if it's you don't really want to talk about it, but you have to talk about it. Because that's Torah, and people need to know these things. I remember actually once Rav Rabinowitz made the comment that in the girls' schools they need to teach the girls as a blanket rule the rule of a mazana once she's married, asur lebal, asur leboil, because they actually just don't know, and they think if they have an affair, okay, they have an affair. And it's and they'll do teshuvah and whatever. That's it. If they've had an affair, that's the end of their marriage. And they don't, and they would think differently about having affairs if they knew about that.
They don't teach these things.
But they don't teach these things.
It's not good for the girls. Also for the boys. There's certain things the boys need to learn also, which they stay away from.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Daled Yud. The episode of Ruvain is read but not translated. The episode of Tamar, however, is read and translated.
Now, this is talking about if you're doing Targum, if you're right with the Matargim standing by the side of the Torah. So out of respect to Ruvain, who we know is Choseh B'Tshuva, we kind of gloss over it and we read it in the Torah because that's the chiyuv, but we don't dwell on it by giving a Targum on it as well, because out of kavod to him that he's that he was Choseh B'Tshuva. But the Maaseh of Tamar, that is actually a shrach to Yehuda, because because his tshuva is for the parsha, it's right there, and his so he comes out exonerated because he actually behaved very well there. Okay, carry on.
The first narration of the golden calf is read and translated. The second is read but not translated. The priestly blessing in the episode of David and Amnon is neither read nor translated. We do not read the vision of the chariot as a haftorah. Rabbi Yehuda, however, permits it. Rabbi Eliezer says we do not make known to Yerushalayim as a haftorah. So
the Tana who says this, the Birkas Kohanim is not read. Well, that's clearly not true, because that's part of the Torah. And there are actually different girsas of the Mishna which say that it's a nikra and v'lo mitargemin, that they're read but not translated, not because chas v'shalom that you should skip out a parsha of the Torah. The reason why that the Tana has anything about the Torah about the Birkas Kohanim is because he says the brachas were given for bracha, not for reading. That this was for the Kohanim actually to pronounce the bracha, but the halacha is not like him in any case. Also, where the halacha is not like him is when we say we don't make a maftir out of the Maaseh Merkava, which as Rabbi Yehuda is matir, and of course the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda because that is our haftarah on Shavuos.
Right.
Okay.
That's
okay, and what the last one is why don't we do a maftir of Hodais Yerushalayim? But it's Torah Vaseha. You make note of them there, but it's because it's a disgrace. It's a genai to Yerushalayim. So that's the reason that Rabbi Eliezer says. But in any case, the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Eliezer. Although I don't know of any place where we actually do use that as a haftarah nowadays. Well, anyway, Hadron Alach Masechus Megillah. Let's do Moed Katan. Okay. So again, Moed Katan is the Masechus that deals with Chol HaMoed. It's the small Moed, right? Where we still have some rules, but it's not the same as the Yom Tov itself. And as an introduction to the Mishnah that we're going to read today, there's a principle that Chazal didn't want us to be overexerting ourselves in Chol HaMoed. So while we are allowed to do melacha, they limited the amount of melacha that we can do, and to not doing things that are going to be overly burdensome, require excessive work. Mm-hmm. Okay, so mashkin beis hashlachin b'moed ubashvius. So the first thing is we actually have a comparison between Chol HaMoed and Shemitah in terms of the work that's done, but there are very different reasons why not to do work in the field, depending if it's Chol HaMoed or if it's Shemitah. If it's Chol HaMoed, it's because of the avodah shebo, it's because of the work and the tircha. If it's because of Shemitah, it's because there's an isser to work the land during Shemitah. Okay, so what we say is you're allowed to irrigate the beis hashlachin, which is a field that needs irrigation. Okay, it's not a rain-watered field. It's a field that needs irrigation, and in both cases because there's a loss. If you don't water the field, there's a chance the plants will die.
Yes.
So you have to, so you are allowed to water them. And that's whether it's from a stream that's always been running past the field, or if it's it's a new stream that's just sort of bubbled up recently, and you want to use it and you didn't have intention for it before, it doesn't make any difference. But you can't water it from rainwater or from
There's a cistern.
right, from a cistern. That's right, because getting rainwater from all around, that's a lot of work, because now you're going to all the different places where the rainwater has been deposited, and you've got to find it. And not from the deep cistern, also because that's work to go down and pick up the water and put it out. Whereas just diverting water from a river, that's not such a big deal. Okay. The ein osin ugios lagapanim, you're also not allowed to make. I wonder why they call it an ugia. It's like a cookie, but it's what that really is it's a little circle that you dig around the plant in order to collect the water. So if you haven't done that before Chol Moed, you can't do it on Chol Moed to make the little ditch around the plant to gather the water. Okay, Mishna base. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer ein osin es ha'ama b'tchila b'moed u'b'shvius. So he says that the ama is a canal that you dig in order to irrigate your fields. He says you cannot dig this canal either on Chol Moed or during Shvius. Okay, during if it's the initial making of the canal, during Chol Moed because it's a lot of work, and during Shemitah because it looks like you're digging in the ground. It looks like you're preparing the ground for planting or whatever. Okay. וחכמים אומרים עושים es ha'ama b'tchila b'shvius u'metaknin es ha'mekul במועד. And Chachamim say in Shemitah you don't have to worry because people will see you that you're digging an irrigation ditch because you're piling the dirt on the side of the ditch. It's clear that you're not doing this to plant. You're clearly digging a trench. Whereas on Chol Moed they're a little more machmir and say, look, if your trench has gotten blocked and there's stones in the way and whatever, and that's preventing the flow, then you can go in and fix it, but you can't dig a new one. So they agree with Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah on that you can't start a new one. And also the ditches that are the gutters that are in the Rishus Harabim. So in order to allow the water to flow away from where people are walking, that you're allowed to fix and clean it up and cleaning out the. You can fix what's broken, and you can clean out the rubbish that's gathered in it even during Chol Moed, because this is a tzorech harabim. So when there's a big heter when it's a public need. And furthermore, even you can even fix the roads and the mikvahs during Chol Moed. Anything that's for a public good. You can be done during Chol Moed. You can also demarcate the graves. This is something that you particularly need during Yom Tov, because all of Israel is coming to Yerushalayim and they're traveling to areas that they don't know, so they have to clearly demarcate the graves so that the Kohanim know where they can't go. The Yotzin Af ala Kilayim, and also this was a time when they would go out to the fields to check the farmers to see that they have removed the kilayim from their fields. Why is this a good time? Because people generally take a break from their regular malacha, so they can hire workers who are not doing their regular stuff and go around and they can go around being inspectors of the kilayim. Yeah. Mishna Gimel, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Moshchim es hamayim me'ilan le'ilan. You're allowed to draw the water, what's the word? To channel the water. You're allowed to channel the water from one tree to another tree. ובלבד שלא ישקה את כל השדה. So you can channel the water from the base of one tree to another tree, because if there's water there, you can get it to another tree. But what is זרעים שלא ובלבד שלא ישקה את כל השדה, but he's not allowed to irrigate the whole field. Okay, so you can't just like blanket spray the whole field with water. He's only allowed to move it from tree to tree. Okay, זרעים שלא שעשו לפני המועד. And furthermore, he says that if you have seeds that you planted but haven't yet been irrigated before Kol HaMoed. So this, I guess, would typically be before Sukkot.
Yes, yeah, it said before the festival, so that probably be Sukkot.
It would probably be before Sukkot, because you probably wouldn't be planting stuff just before Pesach, because that's going into summer when there's no rain. But anyway, let's not be too medai. Okay, if they haven't been watered before, then they haven't started to germinate. So the seeds are dry and they'll last in the ground. You don't have to water them. Therefore, lo yashkem b'moed. So don't start watering them on Kol HaMoed. You don't need to. Leave them alone. Okay. But Chachamim say no, it's fine. You can in all cases about watering the whole tree field or watering the field of grain that's been planted but hasn't yet sprouted, but hasn't yet been watered. Chachamim are cool with that.
I'm not sure about whether it would be Sukkot or not, because usually that if they said that word festival, it would be capitalized. The F would be capitalized. Here, it's all small, so it's just, it's not capitalized. I wonder if that would have anything to do with it.
Sorry, which one? The festival of the small F?
Yeah, it says we can't water before the festival, but the festival in the commentary is all.
So when it's festival with the capital F, that's Sukkot.
Right.
And if it's little f, it could be any festival. And
right.
I mean, only that means Pesach or Sukkot, because they're the only ones that have got the Kol HaMoed.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go back to Megillah.
Okay, Megillah.
Yeah, Aleph Yud.
Okay. There is no difference between the laws pertaining to a major bama and those pertaining to a lesser bama, except as regards the Pesach sacrifices. This is the general rule. Any sacrifice which is a vow offering or a gift offering may be brought on a bama, but any sacrifice that is not a vow offering or a gift offering may not be brought on a bama. There is no difference between the laws pertaining to the tabernacle at Shiloh and those pertaining to the temple in Yerushalayim, except that in Shiloh, one was permitted to eat kadoshim kalim and second tithe anywhere within sight of Shiloh. But in Yerushalayim, one was only permitted to do so within the walls. Both here and Kodesh Kadoshim were permitted to be eaten only within the curtains. After the sanctity of Shiloh, bamos were permitted, but after the sanctification of Yerushalayim, bamos were not permitted. If someone read the Megillah out of sequence, he has not fulfilled his obligation. If he read it by heart, or if he read it in Targum or in any other language, he has not fulfilled his obligation. However, we may read it for those who speak a foreign language in a foreign language. One who speaks a foreign language and heard it read in Hebrew that was written in Assyrian script has fulfilled his obligation. If one,
that's it.
Is that three? That was three, right? Oh. All right.
Okay. Beitza Dalet Gimel.
Okay. Wrong way. One may not chop up wood from beams or from a beam that which was broken on Yom Tov, and one may not chop with an axe or a saw or a sickle, but only with a chopper. A house which is full of produce and sealed and burst open, one may take from the breach. The mayor says he may even make a breach at the outset and take. One may not hollow out a lamp because one makes a vessel, and one may not make charcoal on Yom Tov, and one may not cut a wick into two. Rabbi Yehuda says one may cut it with a flame into two lights. One may not break up a potsherd, and one may not cut paper to roast it on salt fish, or on it salt fish. And one may not take out an oven or a stove, but may press down, and one may not place two barrels side by side to support the pot on them. And one may not support the pot with a chip of wood, and this applies also to a door. And one may not lead an animal with a staff on Yom Tov. Okay.
Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon.
Oh, sorry. But Reb Elazar and Ben Shimon permits.
Okay, that's it. Just that
Sorry,
one sentence, and now we're on to Psachim.
I didn't see that was right in front of me. Okay. Pesachim. What do you have, Shaw, for
Gimel
Pesachim?
Aleph.
I'm sorry?
Gimel Aleph.
Okay. I'm just wasn't really prepared today. These must be removed on Pesach. Babylonian kutak, Midian beef, Duman vinegar, Egyptian sesame, dyer's broth, cook's dough, and scribe's paste. But Eliot says also women's cosmetics. This is the general rule. Whatever is a species of grain must be removed on Pesach, and they are in the category of the prohibition, but they are not subject to kares. When dough remains in the grooves of a kneading trough, and there is as much as an olive's volume in one place, you must remove it. But if not, it is null because of its insignificance. And likewise, regarding the laws of contamination, if he objects to it, he interposes. But if he desires it to remain, then it is as the trough. Regarding death dough, if there is a dough similar to it that has already been leavened, it is forbidden. How do we separate challah from contaminated dough on the festival? Reb Eliyah says we should not designate it with the name challah until it is baked. And Reb Yehuda ben Basara says, let it be cast into cold water. Reb Yeshua said, this is not the leaven concerning which we are warned, it shall not be eaten, or seen, and it shall not be found, but he separates it and leaves it until the evening, and if he leavens, it leavens.
Okay. Katan.
Okay. All right. Kalayim.
I'm base Zion.
I'm sorry, excuse me?
Base Zion.
If the point of a wheat field entered one of barley, it is permitted because it is evidently the end of his field. If his is wheat and his neighbor's is another species, permitted to plant close to it of the same species. If his is wheat and his neighbor's is wheat, he is permitted to plant close to it a bed of flax, but not a bed of another species. Reb Shimon says, especially linseed or any other species. And Reb Yossi says, even in the matter of center of his field, it is permitted to test with a furrow of flax. One may not plant close to a grain field, mustard or safflower, but one may plant close to a vegetable field, mustard or safflower. And one may plant close to a fallow field or to a plow field, to a stone fence or to a road, to a fence which is 10 tefachim high, to a ditch which is 10 deep and 4 wide, to a tree which overshadows the ground, and to a rock 10 high and 4 wide. If one wishes to lay out his field in patches of differing species, he may make 24 patches to a bed saw, and each patch one bed rova, and so in any species he wishes. If there were 1 or 2 of them with mustard, because it looks like a mustard field, so says Reb Meir, but the Kukumim say 9 patches are permitted. 10 are forbidden. If Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov says, even if all his field is a bad core, he may not make it in more than 1 patch.
Okay. Kalim. Rick, you're Dalad.
You're Dalad.
Aleph.
What is the measure for damaged metal utensils? A bucket sufficient to draw water with it, a kettle sufficient to heat water with it, a boiler sufficient to hold selas, a stew pot sufficient to hold ladles, ladles insufficient to hold perutos. Wine measures are calculated with wine, and oil measures are calculated with oil. Reb Eliezer says all of them are calculated with perutos, and Reb Akiva says a utensil that lacks a cover is tameh, but a utensil lacking hammering is tahor. A staff to whose head is attached a nail shaped like an apple is tameh. If one studied it, it is a tameh. The White Shimon says only when one makes 3 rows of nails in it, but all of it, the components when they are made of ornamentation, are tahor. If one attached a tube to the head of the staff, and the same applies to the door, it is tahor. If the tube was a utensil and one attached it to the staff of the door, it is tameh. When does it achieve tahara? Reb Shammai says, when one destroys it. Beis Hillel says, when one attaches it. A builder's crowbar and a carpenter's pick are tameh. 10 pegs and surveyor's pegs are tameh, or 10 pegs and surveyor's pegs are tameh. A chain of surveyors is tameh, but a chair used for wood is tahor. A chain of a larger bucket is tameh up to 4 handbreadths, and a chain of a small one is tameh up to 10 handbreadths. The stand of blacksmith is tameh. A saw whose teeth one set into the door space is tameh. But if one turned it upside down, it is tahor, and all covers are tahor except that of a boiler.
Okay. Sanhedrin, Gimel, Mishna Bab.
How do they examine the witnesses? They bring them in and admonish them. Then they send everyone out and retain.
They bring them.
Sorry?
They bring them.
They bring them in and admonish them.
Admonish them. Okay, right.
Then they send everyone out and retain the most prominent of them. And they say to him, state how you know that this one owes that one. If he said, he told me, I owe him, or so-and-so told me that he owes him, he has said nothing until he says he admitted to him before us that he owes him 200 zuz. Afterward, they bring in the second one and examine him. And if their words are found to coincide, they take up the matter. If 2 vote not liable and 1 votes liable, he is not liable. If 2 vote liable and 1 votes not liable, he is liable. If 1 votes not liable and 1 votes liable, or even if 2 exonerate or 2 obligate, and 1 says, I do not know, then they add more judges. When they conclude the matter, they bring them in. The head judge says, so-and-so, you are not liable, or so-and-so, you are liable. From where do we know that when one of the judges leaves the court, he should not say, I exonerated and my colleagues obligated, but what could I do since my colleagues outnumbered me? Concerning this, it is stated, you shall not go out among your people bearing tales, and it is stated that one who bears tales reveals secrets. Whenever he brings proof, he can overturn the verdict. If they say to him, produce any proofs that you have within 30 days, if he finds evidence within 30 days, he can overturn the verdict, and after 30 days, he cannot return it. Said Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, what should this man do if he did not find evidence within 30 days? But found after 30 days, they said to him, bring witnesses, and he said, I have no witnesses, or they said, bring evidence, and he said, I have no evidence. And subsequently, he brought evidence or witnesses, it is nothing. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, what should this man do if he did not know at the time that he had witnesses and later discovered witnesses, or if he did not know at the time that he had evidence and later discovered evidence? If they said to him, bring witnesses, and he said, I have no witnesses, bring proof, and he said, I have no proof. And when he saw that he was about to be judged liable, he said, let so-and-so and so-and-so approach and testify for me. And he took out evidence from his belt. It is nothing.
Okay. That's it for today.
I learned a new halacha today. I didn't know when we're doing Mishnah Berurah. I didn't know that when we say tefillah sederek, they say it's preferable to say a bracha before you start.
Yes, because it's a long bracha that doesn't have a beginning. It doesn't say bracha Hashem.
So just get a piece of fruit or something like that. I didn't know that.
Little known halacha, but it's a good one to know.